In this video, I'm going to take you through and actually teach you the most effective, accurate and guaranteed way you can drop body fat through dieting whilst maintaining all your muscle mass. It's a very simple process, and this is exactly what I do for myself and when I'm dieting for a shoot or a video recording, and this is the exact process I take all my clients through when they want to drop fat as well. So what you need to do to start with is come up with a diet that is going to fit into your life, be realistic for you to do on a daily basis, and most importantly, you want this original diet to contain as much food as possible. That's correct, you heard correct. When you start a cut or decide you want to start dropping fat, you need to start on a good amount of food. You want lots of good quality carbohydrates. When you are dieting to drop fat, there is no one diet that is going to work for you. It is impossible. You need to make constant changes to your diet on a weekly to fortnightly basis if you want to make continual progress. I don't care if you go through me as a coach or someone else, or even do it by yourself, but never ever pay for just a diet plan. Your diet must change on a regular basis. Not so much the foods you are eating or anything, but more so the amount you're going to be eating. So if someone says they will do your diet for you but won't make any changes to it, you're just paying for the original diet. Don't do it. It's not going to work. You're not going to see good results from just a diet plan, and I'm going to explain to you why. So your original base diet for a male should contain at least 6 to 8 meals, and for a female it should contain about 4 to 6 meals. Alright, so you might think eating 7 or 8 times a day is a lot and you can cram that amount of food into 3 or 4 meals, but you don't want to do that. Eating on a more frequent basis is the very first step in dropping fat, and probably the most important step because it kickstarts the entire process. I want you to think of it like this. If you are eating 3 times a day, you eat 1 meal, your body processes that. 4 hours later, you eat another meal, your body processes that. 4 hours later, you eat another meal and your body processes that. For the entire day, your body is only processing food and sending the nutrients from the food you are eating where they need to go 3 times a day. Compare that if you are eating, let's say, 7 meals a day. Your body has to process food on 7 different occasions. It is working in overdrive to send those nutrients to where they need to go. You are feeding your muscles good quality foods constantly throughout the day. Your body is going to start performing like a fine-tuned machine. It is going to be functioning at its best all the time. Your muscles are being fed good quality nutrients throughout the entire day, and this is literally the one and only way to increase the speed of your metabolism. Okay, funny story. If you ask my girlfriend what is my #1 pet hate in the supplement industry, she would say when products lie to you and tell you that their fat burning product is going to increase the speed of your metabolism. That is not correct, because the one and only way to increase the speed of your metabolism is by increasing the amount of meals you are consuming on a daily basis. Do not get sucked into marketing. Eating more frequently is the only way to increase the speed of your metabolism. When you are putting together your base diet, which I teach you how to do in my video, protein, carbs and fats, you want to be eating, for guys, let's say 7 meals a day. Females, 5 meals a day is okay. This is your #1 priority when dieting for fat loss. The more frequently you are eating, the faster your metabolism is going to become. The easier it is going to be for you to drop body fat. Every meal you have must contain protein. If you're having a meal with protein, carbs and fats, all good. It's a productive muscle building meal. If you have a meal with just carbs and fats, it's a waste of your time. It is not going to have any benefit at all on your body because it does not contain protein. Every single one of those 7 meals you consume on a day-to-day basis must contain protein. Everything I do and everything I know is basically self-taught, and the way I learn is by trying methods on myself. Obviously, I've worked with people and all that and had guidance over the years, but the only way you are really going to know if something works is to try it on yourself and make your own decisions. What I've done with my own knowledge is taken parts from, him, her, him, them, whoever I've worked with, put it all together, and now I have a full-on understanding of how everything works. The very base of, or underlying principle on how I determine whether or not I think a method is going to work or not is if it makes sense logically. If you can lay it all out in your head and understand the process, and you can logically understand how that process works and make it perfect sense, the chances are it's correct and it's going to work. The way I diet and the way I'm about to explain to you how to drop fat through food makes perfect sense to me logically, and that is why I use this method for myself and thousands of clients I've helped to get into incredible shape. Logic is the underlying formula in everything we do when it comes to building muscle and dropping fat, which you will come to understand as you watch more of my videos. Everything you do needs to make sense. So when you are dieting to lose fat, it needs to be for a set period of time. The reason I do a 16-week program is because cutting for 16 weeks is more than enough time to drop a large amount of body fat. You can drop the fat at a very good pace, and you don't have to do anything too drastic that may cause you to lose muscle mass. The reason I also recommend cutting for 16 weeks is because you can't cut forever. You will run yourself into the ground. So the process I'm about to explain to you is how I would cut and get rid of as much fat as I can whilst maintaining all my muscle over that 16-week period. Okay, 7 meals for a guy, 5 meals for a female. In all 7 meals, you want to have protein and carbs. And 2 of those 7 meals, you want to contain some good quality fats. But what we are going to be focusing on is the carb intake. When I'm dieting, my protein and my fats pretty much stay the same throughout the entire process. The carbs are the only variable that changes when it comes to dieting for fat loss. Some people do increase the fats as the carbs get cut, but I personally believe you should be on a good amount of fats from the very start anyway, and should not need to increase them as you go. So we are going to be focusing on the carb intake. When you start dieting, you have protein in all 7 of the meals, and you have carbs in all 7 of the meals, and fats stay the same from start to finish. In week 1 of the cut, you're on the absolute maximum amount of food you will be eating for that entire 16-week period. You will not be dropping any fat from this. This is the maximum amount of food you will be eating for this whole period. This is the most you will ever eat. You need to let your body get used to high amounts of food. It's very important. Because if you start on a minimum amount of food, what food would you have to cut from your diet to drop fat? If you want to get leaner, you need to be cutting food from your diet on a regular basis. You need to get your body used to the highest amount of food it can handle, and you eat that amount for, let's say, 2 weeks to start with. You want your body to get used to that amount of food. You need to let your body weight stabilize on that amount of food, and your metabolism is going to be lightning fast now, as you have been eating 7 meals a day for 14 days with carbs in all 7 meals, which means now you can start the fat loss process. Once your body weight has stabilized over those 2 weeks on your original base diet, the next week you will cut carbs from one of your meals. After you cut carbs from one of your meals, you might drop a kilo, for example. Then the next week you add in an hour of cardio, you might drop off another kilo. Then the week after that, you cut carbs from another meal. You might drop another 500 grams. Then the week after that, you add in another hour's cardio on top of your training program that you are on. You might drop another kilo. So can you see where this is going? You follow this gradual carb cutting process until you've cut carbs from every meal except your post-workout meal. It is calculated and very accurate and effective process. Each week into the cut, you cut your carbs from one meal. Then the week after that, add in an hour of cardio. Cut carbs from one meal, add an hour of cardio, and so on through to week 16. You should never cut your post-workout carbs because that is when you run the risk of losing muscle. You can cut all your carbs you need to do it gradually over a lengthy period, but you must keep your post-workout ones so your muscles still get the chance to recover and have the glycogen replenished and they don't deteriorate. The best way to lose fat is to do it gradually. If you cut all your carbs in 1 or 2 weeks, your body will drop weight very fast, maybe 2 or 3 kilos in a week, but then your body will become accustomed to that amount of food. You'll stop losing weight, you'll have very little energy, and you'll plateau and stop losing fat. You need to cut your carb intake gradually. I know waiting is a pain and we all want to look good right now. Trust me, I go through this battle all the time myself, but by going through the correct process, it's going to make a huge difference to the end result in your life. If you cut your carb intake gradually, you will continue to lose fat throughout the entire 16-week period, and you will not plateau. You will maintain all your muscle mass and have a good amount of energy for the majority of the process. Again, however, if you know, as you can see, after about 10 weeks or so, increasing cardio and cutting carbs, your carb intake is going to get pretty low and your cardio is going to get pretty high. So the further you get into your cut, the better your results they're going to be. After about 4 or 5 weeks of cutting, you will get so hooked on the results, and each week you are just going to get leaner and leaner by gradually cutting the carbs 1 meal at a time on a weekly to fortnightly basis. This process is guaranteed to work. It is not just a fad. It is not something I would tell you to do if I didn't think it was going to work. I like to see it as an intelligent and logical process that makes perfect sense to maximize the amount of fat one person can lose over a 16-week period of time whilst maintaining all their muscle mass. The risk of losing muscle going through this process is basically none, and the chances of building is also very high because your carb intake is quite high on the start. One thing I think I need to mention is the importance of being consistent. If you are missing meals and cheating your diet and missing workouts and stuff like that, it's going to affect the fat loss process. Your body won't be used to the same amount of food, and then you're going to cut carbs out, and it's just not going to work. If you're eating the same amount of food on a daily and then weekly basis, nailing it every week, then you cut those carbs, increase the cardio gradually. It makes perfect sense that the fat is just going to fall off, but you need to be consistent. Cutting carbs and increasing cardio over a long period of time is going to result in consistent fat loss throughout the entire period. I have one cheat meal every week, which you should do as well, just to keep you sane and give you some form of enjoyment throughout food. But the key to this whole process is dedication and consistency. You must get your meals in and you must get your workouts done every day. I must mention that when starting the cut, it's actually a great time to build muscle. The reason I prefer this method over every other method is that the risk of losing muscle is extremely low, and the chances of building muscle and dropping body fat at the same time is quite high. When you're eating 7 meals a day, all of them containing carbs, you are definitely going to build muscle. And this is actually how you build muscle and drop body fat at the same time, by following this correct process. A lot of the time, the weight on the scale won't move for the first 4 or 5 weeks because the carbs are actually building muscle whilst you are in the process of dropping fat. So it's equaling each other out. If you are losing fat and building muscle, your weight tends to stay the same because they counteract each other. And this is why you cannot use the scale as a key performance indicator to measure your results. After you've successfully completed the 16-week fat loss period, not only will you have more muscle mass because you were on such a high carb intake to start with, but you have just completed the correct process in dropping fat. So the end result, most of the time, actually results in you having much better shape, more muscle mass, and obviously you will be a lot leaner because that was the primary focus. So I just want to recap what you need to do to lose fat through dieting correctly. You need to be eating approximately 7 meals a day if you're a male, 5 if you're a female. All meals must contain protein, and all meals must contain good quality carbs to start with. Now, each week you cut carbs from 1 meal, and then alternating weeks you add in an hour's cardio. Then you cut carbs, add cardio, cut carbs, add cardio, 1 week at a time all the way through to 16 weeks. So 8 weeks you're cutting out carbs and 8 weeks you're adding cardio. I promise you, if you do this properly, you stay dedicated and you bust your ass in the gym, 16 weeks time, you're going to be in the best shape of your life. I'm not being arrogant here, I'm just being honest. I'm one of the largest, I'm a very successful online coach. I have thousands of testimonials to back me up. What I'm saying about this process is, the main thing I want you to get out of it is to take my word for it, try it for yourself, and I guarantee you it will work for you. 100% success rate if you do it properly. Losing fat is so simple when you think about it logically. The hardest part of the process is actually staying dedicated and consistent. But like I said, suck it up for the first 4 or 5 weeks when the fat loss is a little slow, but after that, from week 5 and 6 onwards, you're going to be so hooked on the changes you're seeing in the mirror, you will see it out to the end. You are going to look incredible. You have my word. If you still have more fat to lose after your first 16 weeks cut, reverse diet correctly, which I teach you, in my other video, reverse dieting, and start the process all over again.